Our fabulous friends and Michael and Claire will think about our feelings everywhere with thoughts about feelings. Thoughts about feelings, yeah!
This is Michael speaking. Can you believe we're talking more and more about thoughts, about feelings? Today we're going to be talking all about education. You may be feeling some hard things about education. You may feel that you don't belong in education. You may have some questions about what that means for you. And that's okay, because we're here to tell you that education is for you at whatever level: kindergarten, fourth grade, college. If you're 80 years old and you're back in school, education is always there for you. We are rooting for you. If today is a hard education day for you, if you're looking at the news too much, that's okay. Take a break. Do what you have to do for yourself, because we're going to be speaking with a wonderful educator today to hopefully help you feel even just a little teeny bit better.
So today we're going to be talking about our thoughts about feelings, about education. So we'll have a little smarter in seconds about what is education, because we've all been educated. Sometimes we're the ones who are doing the educating, but what is it? And education is the process of facilitating learning, acquiring knowledge, skills, values, beliefs, and habits. It involves teaching, training, and development of understanding through various methods like instruction, discussion, research, and hands-on experiences. And everyone learns differently and processes education differently, and that's absolutely okay. Fabulous. And now we'll introduce our dear friend, Mrs. Frazzled. Hi.
Hello. Mrs. Frazzled is an educator and social media content creator who gained popularity on platforms like TikTok and Instagram. She creates educational content that often focuses on making learning fun and accessible for students. She became particularly well known during the rise of educational content on social media platforms in the early 2020s. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. Is there anything you want to share before we start bothering you and peppering you with questions?
Not at all. Let's jump on in.
I like peppering you with questions. It makes it sound like we're seasoning, you know. We're all getting seasoned together.
Yeah.
Well, the first questions we have are library kid questions. And these are just like, you know, Michael likes to describe. How do you describe library kids again?
I describe library kids just as like any kid who has ever gone to the library, who wants to go to the library. And also present day library grown-ups are still library kids at heart.
Absolutely. Michael also says that library kid questions are sometimes the little walking intrusive thoughts. And we love that with the young people in our lives. And our library kid question, I think, is something that a lot of educators are asked, which is, how did you learn so much? I remember when I was a little girl, I thought I was going to have to name all my kids Blair because that was the only name I knew how to spell. And I didn't think I would ever learn how to spell anything else. So how did you learn so much?
Well, I've always been really curious. That's the biggest thing. I've always been questioning the world around me, and I love knowing things, and I love knowing how to find the answers to them. So when I became an educator, when I became a teacher, that was something that I kept going. And one thing about the world is it's always changing. So we always have more things we can learn. Our learning never stops. And I'm still learning things. I still don't know everything, but I'm glad I'm on a journey of learning more all the time.
Definitely. And when it comes to learning, sometimes that can, especially about the current events in our lives, it can give us a lot of anxiety. You had a question about that, right, Michael?
I did, yeah, no, quite a bit of anxiety. I don't like to look at the news. I don't like to watch the main news channels. I try to avoid it when I'm on social media. But I happen to see a lot of your videos talking about education and your reaction to the news. So not to put too much pressure on you about that, the fact that Mrs. Frazzle is where I tend to get my news of the world of the day. But how does that feel for you, that some people do get their news from you, and how does that affect your mental health as well?
Well, it's a big responsibility because there's a lot of different things in the news. Different sources will give you different stories sometimes. So it's really important to me to make sure that I am a trusted source. Even if it takes me a little longer to get a video out, I would rather it be accurate and well-researched as much as possible. But for me, I'm totally with you. I don't like to aimlessly scroll. Sometimes that can feel really scary and anxiety inducing. But for me, one way that I make things less scary for myself is to make videos breaking down what's going on. It's a way that I feel I can take action, whether it's educating other people or helping them to navigate the news or current events that are happening. And everybody can find different ways to get engaged. Whatever works for you. There's no wrong way as long as you're getting engaged somehow. So I think, it's just helpful for me to do that for me as well as others.
Definitely relatable. That's a lot of what I do. But I think it can be so hard to try to stay on top of everything. You mentioned, like, even if it takes you a little bit longer to get these videos out, I feel like you're at a breakneck pace constantly. And so how do you, kind of measure what you discuss, what you kind of leave on the back burner when, how do you decide what your audience needs to know about?
Well, a lot of my content is about education. But the thing about schools and teaching and education is so much of our world is brought into schools because there's so many different people that learn in schools or work in schools. So what happens is I stay focused on education in schools as much as possible, but because schools are little tiny versions of our society, other stuff comes in and we get to talk about that too, how it affects all of us and how it affects education. So that's one way that I make it manageable for myself, and I hope that it helps others too, that we're not going too broad. We're just trying to stay on one thing, but then other stuff comes in with it, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
It does. I mean, you do a great job of just like breaking things down into like a very, not a simple version. That seems like the wrong word to use, simple, but just a way that everybody can understand, adults and kids. And I think that's a very powerful thing to do, which is probably your teacher background, being able to really relate with everybody. But when talking about education with kids, with all these heavy topics, about talking about education, talking about banned books, talking about what should be taught in school, talking about Black history, talking about Mexican history, all these various things that people need to know about themselves, how would you suggest that we start educating our kids and talking about these heavy topics?
One thing about kids is they're so smart and they are so curious, and their curiosity will lead them to get their information from you, a trusted source, or they will seek it out elsewhere, and that might not be a trusted source where they're going to find that information. So really, when I think about talking to kids about these things, honesty, simplicity, and hope are three things that I think about. How can we explain it on their level? What do they need to know? What maybe do we just not get into yet because it's a little complex or adult or what have you? But you can be honest and explain to them, and also just let them know that they're safe no matter what's going on or what they're coming to you with, because kids can get overwhelmed if they don't feel safe or they feel like hopeless or something. So just letting them know that you're always a safe and trusted person to come to is huge. And then just doing the best you can to bring them information in a way that is at their level. But shying away from it is definitely something I would say. Try not to do that. Try to engage with them. Even if you have to say, I don't know that answer yet, I'm going to get back to you. That's valuable too.
It definitely is. We had that moment, we're in Altadena, we're at Octavia's bookshelf, and there were so many things going on with my family members, especially my 5-year-old niece, and somebody suggested online, because they had gone through a disaster as well, tell her that as long as you have somewhere safe to live, then she has somewhere safe to live. And I feel like that was not only reassuring, I think, to her, but very much also to me. And I think that sometimes adults need the encouragement and support. That's what people look to Michael for, the pep talks. People also look to you. I first found your social media through your gentle parenting of, your problematic uncle or your racist auntie. Yeah. And it made me laugh, but I also thought it was so valuable. And I've actually started to employ some of this as I deal with so many different personalities, whether it's on social media or in real life or in my family or my friend group. How first of all, do you really do that in real life? Do you really gentle parent the adults in your life? And how did you come up with the idea?
I don't do it in that way. But when I was teaching, I was a kindergarten teacher. When I was teaching, I realized that we are all really just grown-up children. Deep down, we have a lot of the same needs. And when we see what we might think of as a tantrum in an adult, very similar in what we see in a child. And we need to be seen and heard and recognized. But I really just started employing the same tactics that I use on my students with adults. And of course, you're not using the silly voice that I use, or you're not talking down to them. But
just stop doing that then.
I mean, sometimes you just need to. It's like sometimes if I'm frustrated, I sing. Sometimes if you're frustrated, you need to break out the kindergarten teacher voice. I get it. I totally get it. But yeah, you just really, in all of my videos, I try to put at least a few things in there that I would actually use with a child or an adult who's having a big feeling. And really, if you take take it out of the scenario or take the voice away, I'm hoping some of it's at least a little actionable. So I do it, but not in that way.
It's been really, I think, transformative for me in how I engage with people to kind of like recognize that, adults are having big feelings too. And it's hard to try to talk to people about their feelings in general, which is part of the reason why we created this show. How do you talk about your feelings with the adults in your life and also with the children in your life? Do you do it differently?
Definitely. I think when I'm talking, because I have kids, when I am having a moment and my child notices, is mommy sad? What's going on? I'm really honest about what I'm feeling. Like, yeah, right now, mommy is sad, or right now, mommy needs a break. Mommy's frustrated. Naming that is modeling, and it helps children to name their feelings and then to see an adult take care of themselves and do what they need to do to self-regulate, I think is really valuable. But I am really lucky to have really great friends too, and family who I can go to, and we can just talk through stuff. And I think having that network, especially now when the news is, there's something new every single day, multiple times a day, having that offline network is so important so that you can work through your big feelings. Because one thing about big feelings is you cannot just ignore them. They are going to emerge whether you want them to or not. So it's about getting ahead of it and taking care of yourself as best as you can so that you don't erupt, so to speak.
No, that's perfect. I love that you're talking about big feelings, but how you address your own big feelings as an educator, as a chronically online person like ourselves. I think it's just so very important when we talk about what goes into being an educator, what goes into being a teacher. I think we're all different forms of being educators. So I think the question I'm going to eventually ask you is like, what does being an educator mean to you? I think it's so special to me because I was going to ask you, what grade do you teach? And you already said kindergarten, which is wow, I'm very proud of you. That's very amazing. I was a children's librarian for a few years, and I had the misfortune of temporarily being handed responsibility for the kindergarten class. The kindergarten teacher could run to the front desk and print some things, and the kindergartners they recognized a weak link, and they immediately began striking each other in the face. And I had to kind of holster my big feelings and be like, I have to tattle on you guys now because I can't do anything for you. Can you please stop striking each other until your teacher gets back? When they get back, commence doing that. So it's a very, very hard grade to teach. I mean, all grades. I mean, kindergarten, elementary, high school. I think if you ask any teacher, it's rightfully so, is a challenge because of these big feelings that we're talking about. But when it comes to corralling kindergartners and their tiny fists, elementary school students, what would you say? What does being an educator mean to you? Like, what are the fun parts? What are the challenging parts? What brings you joy about being an educator?
I really miss being in the kindergarten classroom. I went out on maternity leave and I haven't been back yet. One of the kids called it eternity leave, where you don't come back. But I will be back. But I loved they're so honest and they are so inquisitive. And that curiosity that I mentioned, where like, how do you know so much? I'm curious and I like to learn. I think that's something that kids come pre-programmed with. And I never want to squish that out of a child. I want to foster that curiosity, and finding different ways to do that was really, really fun for me. And now as an educator about different things for adults like politics or education policy or what have you, I feel like it's helpful to just help people make sense of the world around them. And that's really what educating means to me at its core. Everybody's going to be, like you said, on your own educational journey. Everybody's learning journey looks different, but getting to be able to facilitate that in any kind of small or big way is really an honor. And education and learning is such a privilege, and it's something that I believe is a human right. And I think it's just great to be able to be any part of that because it's such a cornerstone of our society. So I really like it. I like teaching a lot.
I love that. But what about the challenges?
Challenges. Well, I think that's a challenge in and of itself, really, because there is a lot of responsibility there. And, I'm a white lady. And I think there's a lot of intersectionality that's really important to education. So there's also this parallel journey of while you're educating, you're also learning and unlearning so much, especially if you're a white lady like me. So it's like you want to do the best you can all the time with the information that you're given, and helping kids and adults make sense of that information is something that is no small feat, and it's something I take really seriously. And I think that's why sometimes it takes me so long to get my videos out, because it's something that I want to make sure I'm doing my homework with as much as possible. And I think that is a challenge.
So I have what I think is a fun question, or it's fun to me about being an educator. I love your name that you go by, Mrs. Frazzled. It's so much fun. It always reminds me of Miss Valerie Frizzle, one of my all-time favorite teacher characters. So one, just kind of where did Mrs. Frazzled come from? Are you a very unfrazzled person, but you happen to be frazzled? Is it a mixture of the two? And also, like, what teachers, what educators did you kind of love in the entertainment culture? Like, I've always loved Mr. Ratburn from Arthur. I love Mr. Feeney. All these various teachers. So.
Yes, I did get my inspiration from Miss Frizzle. I saw, I think it was a meme or something many years ago that said, I'm a little more Miss Frazzled than Miss Frizzle. And at that time, I was getting started on social media, and I thought, there's a lot of representation for teachers that have it all together. But I think sometimes I don't have it all together. And it's not picture perfect. Education is quite messy because there's so many different types of people that come into your classroom and so many people you work with. So it's not a perfect picture scenario. And I thought, that's kind of perfect. Like Miss Frazzled. Okay. So that's where I took my inspiration from for my name. And I did love the Magic School Bus growing up, of course. And I loved Mr. Feeney and Boy Meets World. But also when I was little, I watched Matilda every single day. Every day. My poor mom. So Miss Honey was definitely someone that I was thinking of growing up. And Mr. Rogers, I'm from the same hometown as Mr. Rogers. So although
Which hometown is that? Give us
Latrobe, Pennsylvania.
Fabulous.
Yes. We have his cardigan and his shoes in our high school in like a case. So he's everything.
Huge flex.
It really is. Yeah. So even though he's not a traditional, teacher, I loved him as well. Very formative for me.
Definitely Mr. Rogers. And well, I wonder, like, when it comes to being we ask this question all the time to our guests, but how do you kind of navigate your mental health online?
Well, I have to be really honest with myself, I think. I have to check in with myself all the time. Am I overwhelmed? Is my own emotion coloring how I'm viewing this scenario? I literally have a fidget with me while we film because I know that if I'm getting, I just need that sometimes. So really checking in with myself. And to be able to check in with myself, I think I needed a lot of therapy and guidance and understanding my own mental health. And because if you can't understand your baseline, how do you know when you're out of whack, So it is really difficult. And I think setting boundaries online has been so important for me. I have, sometimes I need people to not message me, so I turn off my messages, or sometimes I need to block, and that's good too. Sometimes I'm totally ready to talk to people with opposing viewpoints, and I can show up to that conversation fully. But when I can't, I need to be really realistic about it. And I think that's one way to be sustainably on the internet, but also getting off of the internet, which is something Blair was like, yeah, get off of the internet and take a break sometimes. And it's huge. It's just that taking some deep breaths and touching grass and checking in with your community in real life is everything.
We definitely have to shout out Tricia Hersey's Rest is Resistance.
Yes,
And
it's on the shelf.
Yes, it's on the shelf here at Octavia's Bookshelf if you want to check it out. Definitely get it at your local library, or you can get it from Octavia's Bookshelf. But that's been so necessary, I think, particularly after the election, for a lot of folks who are working in politics, who are so plugged in, for educators, for librarians who are experiencing book bans and attacks on our professions. It's really important to unplug, and a lot of people can feel guilty about doing that, but we shouldn't.
No. Not at all. And I really appreciate your vulnerability talking about your fidget spinner, your fidget thingamajig. For me, it's just my hands. I just move them all the times. I think it's so very important as an educator. I think we put so much pressure on teachers, on educators, because you're doing such wonderful things for our kids and also for us, because you're never too old to learn. I think it's important to take a break, to take a break for yourself and realize that, yeah, it's okay that you don't know everything, because you're learning right alongside those kids. And that's so important when we talk about the feelings of what goes into education and what goes into teachers, who we, of course, don't pay nearly enough for the incredible thing that you all do each and every day.
Librarians, too. Also in there. Yes.
What unfrazzles Mrs. Frazzled?
Really checking in with real people. It brings me such peace to get off of the internet or turn off the TV or whatever and just call a friend and talk about how you're feeling and what brings you hope and what action steps you're taking in real life. And that makes me feel so much calmer. I'm a person that needs to talk through things a lot. So sometimes my friends know I will call one after the other, and we'll have very similar conversations. I'm not supposed to do that because of my OCD, but little trick. But it's really nice to have that and to feel supported so that, we can talk through things with people that are in the real communities with us where we're trying to make change. Because so much of what I do is political, but we really can't get engaged politically unless we're locked in locally. And that's something that I don't like to put online, because I don't want anybody knowing where my local politics are. I don't want them to know too much about me. It's very localized. So that helps a lot, is to stay clued into what's going on and feel like we are making change together, and it brings me hope to do that. And that makes me feel very unfrazzled.
Yeah, taking actions, whether they're small or big, it's particularly in our local community. I think sometimes we can get so caught up about who's posting what, who's saying what, who's commented on this, who hasn't. And, in Islam, we believe, only Allah knows your intentions, only God knows your intentions. But a lot of us, a lot of us end up experiencing a lot of scrutiny over what actions we're taking, what we're not. And that can create a lot of guilt and a lot of anxiety. And that can all keep us from making a real change in our communities. And I want to talk about what our episode today is brought to us by, because I think it is so important for us to have that sustainable reservoir, and you can't pour from an empty cup. So today's episode of Thoughts About Feelings is brought to you by drinking a glass of water. And we all brought our... Where is it? There we go.
Somewhere around here.
Yeah. Our different reusable water bottles. And mine has just so much lip gloss on it, but it's okay. And so I'll take a sip of water. Perfect. I'm having some tea, some oolong tea. Yum.
Hydration.
Yes, hydration is essential. Drinking some water is just, you're mostly water. We're just bags of water with bones and feelings. And we have to take care of ourselves. And so, was that a bar perhaps? But, Thoughts About Feelings is completely self-funded by myself and Michael Threets. We have the amazing people at Ninth Planet Audio who are making this possible. And so we're not brought to you by sponsors, but instead by acts of self-care. So I hope you decide to drink some water and to regularly schedule hydration breaks if you have ADHD like me and forget to do so. When it comes to education and being online, I noticed that there's a lot of people who almost punish folks who don't already know about something. I think people take a lot of pride in the information that they've learned. They feel as though, well, I've learned this, now you need to figure it out on your own, kid. What are your thoughts on that? Clearly, I think we all have a different approach of trying to not gatekeep knowledge and information, but have you come across that attitude? And if you have, how do you kind of navigate around it?
Of course. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was thinking about that. People really shouldn't feel shame in things that they don't know. I think normalizing that is a huge, huge important thing. And I really like when I get to say, I don't know, let's find out together, and walking my audience through what it looks like to fact check something, what it looks like to research something. Where do you even go to research things to find trusted sources or primary documents? Because sometimes those are really buried. And I think the more that we can model that, just like when you're a teacher in the classroom and a kiddo asks you something, hey, I don't know, let's find out together. I think that's really valuable. And I think people can kind of get stuck in their own ego of feeling defensive if you don't know something. Goodness knows I have totally been there where I'm like, oh, I should really know that. And I don't. But I think it's good. I think learning is good. And that's part of learning. And I've definitely seen people say that online, but I think we need people to be moving towards educating themselves, not making people feel ashamed for what they don't know yet.
That's so important. I love how often we've been talking about, like, it's okay to not know things. It's okay to seek out the information. I think that's something I've always loved being a librarian, is people everywhere I go, people always say, do you have any book recommendations for this? Do you have any book recommendations for my 5-year-old, for my kid who wants to know more and more about history? I'm like, I have a lot of book titles floating in my head, but I don't have that many book titles floating around my head. No librarian does. Oftentimes, we love having a catalog. We love having a computer where we ask you questions, and when we look it up and we learn together, we make a book list in person together. It's a joint venture. I'm curious if it's also similar for teachers, as you're saying, you don't know everything. As a teacher, you know a lot of things, but you're still trying to learn more and more. So librarians love a catalog. We love having access to the internet. What is it for you as a teacher, as an educator? Is it Wikipedia?
The internet is a huge tool, and teaching kids and yourself how to navigate that tool is so, so important. I'm just like you. I love having information at my fingertips. I love talking to people about what you're actually looking for, what would best help you understand, and being able to ask follow-up questions is so huge. In education, we call it scaffolding, when we build people's knowledge up from the ground, because sometimes the things that people are asking are very, very lofty or very, very academic topics. And we can't just jump in there. So being able to start at the bottom and go up is really, really amazing. And the internet really is a great tool for that if you know how to navigate the internet. Wikipedia is a great starting point because they also have sources there at the bottom that you can explore. A lot of them are very academic sources, or their books or things like that. And going back to how those sources were used is also really important. But it's a muscle. You got to learn how to do it, and having somebody to guide you, like a librarian looking for books, a teacher or an educator will help you look for knowledge. And I think that's really, really important.
It's definitely essential. I think that sometimes the heat that people get for not knowing something, we need to reserve that for folks who have ample access to the information and refuse to be more compassionate or more humanistic in their understandings. Not, blow that smoke at people who simply are just learning something for the first time. I want to know for each of us one thing that you may have learned in the past few months that you didn't know before. Hang on. I can go first. So I had heard the song Freebird by Leonard Skinner for the first time, like recently. Can I tell you how devastated I was to learn about their love of the Confederate flag? To like this band is so good. They're so good at guitar. Oh my gosh. What? Wait, what is this? And so, yeah, I'm currently on that era of
What a bummer.
I know. Which is also bananas, because how did I not hear this song or learn about Leonard Skinner? And I went to Louisiana State University. I feel like the knowledge was definitely lacking. Somebody dropped the ball. It wasn't me. My primary education when it came to music was definitely Motown. But I have to remember that your favorite song, somebody else is learning it, hearing it for the first time. And we definitely see this with young people. Sometimes we also see it with people my age. So yeah, Leonard Skinner, Freebird, amazing. That guitar solo, absolutely. The Confederate flags, leave it.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I feel like I've been under a fire hose of learning new things recently. Because I'm learning about a lot of different things that are in the law. And I don't know the law. I have to read the law. So then I have to look up 8,000 words that I've never heard before. So I have been on quite the learning journey of just figuring out how do you navigate, like, what's an executive order and what does it mean? Do you have to follow it or not? And going through that rabbit hole was a whole learning process because a lot of people were saying different things. And I was like, well, I'm gonna figure it out right now. So I'm gonna call my lawyer friend and ask her to teach me. So that was really exciting to figure out what that is and then figure out how to break that down, because one of the best ways that I learn about things is figuring out how to explain it. So that was a big one recently.
That is a big one. That's a very hard question. That's difficult. I think I'm learning new things each and every day, especially from both of you. I mean, just like I said, I get my news directly from you. You're my version of the various major outlets. You're always doing Smarter in Seconds. I'm learning about more about 40 Acres and a Mule from Kendrick Lamar's song and different things of that nature. I think for me, I think it's more of like a reminder than it is learning something brand new. Something about like literacy is truly for everybody. We're always learning to be more literate as kids. We're learning to be more literate as adults. And I think for me, I saw that firsthand. And I don't usually check comments on social media. So if you ever comment something positive to me, I'm very sorry that I don't respond right away. For my mental health, I am not supposed to look at the comments, as a lot of my closest friends say. They're like, you are not allowed to
I think
look
that's
at
good
comments.
advice for everyone.
You
Yes.
post and forget it. But I did look at some of the comments recently as I'm talking more and more about banned books and access to books and more about the big feelings of education. And I read some people's comments and they're basically asking, or they're saying a counter thing to what I'm saying. And I'm like, but I just said that in the post. Did you respectfully? Did you read the entire post? And it's something where yes, so we as adults, we have to read all of these things too. As much as kids are learning to take in all the information, all the resources, it's also something that adults have to do too. I myself am guilty of it oftentimes as well.
Yeah, it's always difficult. So I remember when I was, a kid and also an adult in college, just my whole academic career, where there would be something in the syllabus and I didn't read the syllabus, or if I did read the syllabus, it was when it was handed to me and I skimmed through it and I was like, I don't need this. Meanwhile, the professor or teacher has spent many, many hours going through it. Now I feel like I'm getting that comeuppance every single day because I'll have people who will be like, well, actually, and I'll be like, so, and I don't want to be mean, but I am feeling a little spicy because I've spent 4 hours on this video. So now I understand. I'd like to, I feel like one of the episodes before I apologized to Neil deGrasse Tyson. Today I'm apologizing to my graphic design teacher, Mr. Andy Walker. I'm sorry for never reading the syllabus because I totally get it now.
I've started circling things. I'll screenshot it and send it back circled, or I'll screenshot like the timestamp and be like, here you go.
Yeah.
Here's the answer.
I took it so personally when I would be told to read the syllabus, and I feel like on social media, I'll see it in your comments, I see it in your comments when people are like, well, you can look that up. People are like, how dare you ask me to look it up on a search engine myself?
That's what you're here for.
But we can do that. Yeah.
Honestly, I think that's also a big part of them saying like, oh, they're asking you about things that you're talking about Smarter in Seconds. They're asking you about education because they see you as a primary resource. So I think really it is a badge of honor, but to us, because like you said, we put so many hours into it, we're like, oh, please come on. But they're like, I have the internet too. I could search it, but I'd rather hear from you. I want to know your take.
I think you really helped reframe or rewire my brain on that, because I do take it as an honor now. And I think that education is so vulnerable, but it is an honor when people look to you as an educational resource. It is a big responsibility, but it's one that I think you do very well. You do very well, and I'm working on being less. Very well. Oh, thank you very much. Fishing for compliments a little bit there. But no, I think that there's so much we have. Okay, I'm going to just take it back to the Lion King, and I'm sure this is an actual proverb, but there's more to see than can ever be seen, and more to do than can ever be done. But there's so much we can learn about, and maybe there's more to learn about than we can ever learn. But I think that's a pretty good challenge.
100%. I love that.
Thank you so much to Octavia's Bookshelves for letting us film here today with Mrs. Frazzled. It also just so happens to be their 2nd year anniversary. We love an independent bookstore. We love a bookstore for the community. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts to them for letting us celebrate library joy, book joy, and education joy today.
Well, thank you so much, Michael. Thank you so much, Mrs. Frazzled, for joining us today. And our action item, make sure you're taking care of yourself. Go ahead and take that drink of water. But also, why not call your representatives? Even if you didn't vote for them, they still work for you. And if you want to learn more about how to do that, I've created a Smarter in Seconds episode where I kind of impersonate a car salesman, used car specifically salesman. So it's a good watch regardless. We have so much power to take action. Yes, there are a lot of things that are not within our control, but there are a few things that are. So I hope that you make sure to check out Mrs. Frazzled's work. And do you want to leave us with a few words as well?
Yes. I think learning never stops. Never stop being curious, and pass along what you know.
Pass along what you know.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
We've got some thoughts about feelings. Think of the places we can go and the people we'll meet, the things that we'll see. What do you think? Are you feeling me? Thoughts about feelings. All the ideas we can share with our fabulous friends.